I want to discuss the update Polygon app. That's the code that I've uploaded to the website. This code is something that you should really delve into. It'll help you in solving that homework on the traffic lights. And it also discusses what you need to do when you're writing a GUI app. Um, when you're writing a GUI, you have two things that you have to do. You have to lay out your components. Forget about clicking buttons and what those buttons do. You have to lay out your components properly. The GUI has to look good. And once that looks good, you move on to the actual functionality, which is what happens when you click a button. And so this app is something that you need to really understand. And so I offer this as a solution to helping you do your assignment. So let's take a look at it. And here we go. We're at the very top. We have our app that extends application. It's short and sweet, like we did with uh, the Chinese flag app. Okay. The whole key to doing this is a scene displays a GUI of some sort. The GUI is a pane, and that pane is going to be 575 by 575. Now, what's a pane? A pane is just a collection of components, of nodes, and they're laid out in a certain way. Let's not worry about that right now. So here we have our GUI, and we set the title of the window. We set the scene to be the scene that we just established here. We show it, and we're good to go. That's it. That's short and sweet. That's what you should do for your programs as well. Now let's delve into the app GUI. The app GUI is this class here. Now by rights, you really should put all these classes in separate files. It's just easier for me right now when you're doing these videos to just have everything up in front so that I can just scroll down and access them. But here's what app GUI is. Let's take a look what app GUI is. Class app GUI extends border pane. So what does that mean? You have to understand what a border pane is. An app GUI is a border pane, but a border pane is nothing more than establishing regions of your app. You have a top, a bottom, a left, and a right, and then whatever real estate isn't occupied by those regions, that goes in the center. And so let's take a look at this. Now see, let's run this to show you what's actually happening here. And so here's what we've got. This is the app. Okay. Okay. On the right side, we have a statistics pane. This is even more than what you're going to use for your homework. This is a little bit of an overkill. But the idea here is if I hit these buttons, okay, it starts to look like a circle. As you add more sides, it starts to look like a circle. And using a formula that you can download, just look up and Google regular polygon area, you can come up with a formula to calculate this polygon area in square pixels is this value here, and if this were a perfect circle, pi r squared tells you that that's the value, and the difference between those two values gets smaller and smaller as I add more and more sides. So, what does this mean? Well, here's what this means. On the right side, I have a pane of some sort that shows some statistics. On the bottom of the app, we've got another pane that horizontally lays out the two buttons, plus and minus, and you can see what those are. If you minus just decreases the number of sides, plus increases the number of sides, and you can tell that from the statistics. So far I've occupied the right side, the bottom. If I don't touch the top or the left, this area right here is called the center of the application. So let's put this to the side here. Let's see if we'll leave that there for now. Let's take a look at this. All right, so we've got 1, 2, 3 panes. 3 panes, that's what I've got here. I set the bottom to this horizontal box, which is the two buttons. I set the right side to be the stats pane, the statistics pane, and the actual update of the Polygon update pane is in the center. There you go. We've laid out their components. Now that all depends on what these constructors are doing here. Here we have a constructor that defines an updatable polygon pane. Okay, we'll take a look at that in a second. Statistics pane, we saw that. Size controls. Well, this is size controls needs, when I click a button, the size controls need to have access to this pane and the stats pane so that they can update them. So when I click a button gets clicked, okay, I need to update the poly pane. You just don't get that for free. You have to pass into this constructor the location of where that poly pane is. It's defined here. I pass it to pane, and the stats pane has to be updated as well. Okay, so at this point, let's just take a look. This is what we've got going on here. This is what This is what we have here. Okay, so we've loaded it. There's not much else other functionality. This is just laying out the panes. Let's take a look at updatable polygon pane. Don't know why that's happening. Okay. You know what? Updatable polygon. You have to understand this. This is the technique that you're going to use for your homework. This is the technique that you use for any GUI. Updatable polygon pane extends a stack pane. What does that mean? The children that you put inside that pane are centered inside the pane. That's it. That's all that means. This is a pane and it's centered inside. We start off by saying, well, we have a couple of private fields here. We say that we'll display 4 sides initially, and then we have a certain radius that we have to pass in. I think we do that here. And so updatable polygon pane is a constructor where we set the radius to be 200. And once we set any of these values here, any of these properties, once they're set or changed, the GUI of this pane has to be modified. They usually call that a paint method, where you repaint the contents of the pane. So here I change a value, paint the pane. This.paint means repaint this polygon. This is a method that's defined internal. Okay, you'll even notice that it's private. Private methods, obviously other people can't call private methods. That's a controlled method that only you can call through the public interface. Enlarge and shrink. Enlarge and shrink basically means let's add some sides. When you enlarge the polygon, that probably should be increased. That should probably be called increased sides, but I want to increase the number of sides. That's what I do here. All right. Now remember, a button is going to be clicked. That button is going to call enlarge inside that class instance. We increment the sides, and because we changed that value, we got to repaint it. Same thing with the shrink. As long as you want to make sure that you don't keep decrementing until you get down to 0 or -1. I'm not sure what a -1 side would look like, but as long as you've got valid sides, you can decrement the sides and then you repaint again. Now the magic here of repainting the polygon pane is that we clear out whatever polygon happens to be displayed there, delete it, get rid of it, no more. Now what's going to happen is we figure out what the center X, center Y is, the center of the pixel position of where the center of the polygon is going to be. We create a polygon. Okay, we set some fills and stroke characters here. Those are typical things that you're going to do when you draw something. We grab a reference to the points, and these points are nothing more than a list. And this is code that you can get off in your textbook. Okay, we have a list of vertices. These are the vertices. Let's take a look. Where is it? Oh, I don't have it anymore. Let's run it again. These are the vertices. There's the XY position for that, XY position for that vertex, that vertex. And so as we add, we have more. This is a vertex, another vertex, another vertex, X and Y. And what's going to happen here is to load those vertices, for every side that you get, you do a little bit of trigonometry to calculate the X position of the vertex. You add it to the list of values. Then the next thing that you do is you calculate the y position of that vertex. So you add x and y, x and y, x and y. You got to make sure that you add two values, an x and y position, to the list, and that establishes the vertex list. Once you have that, you got all the polynomial vertices. You can just add that polynomial to this pane. This pane is a stack pane. It displays nicely in the center of that pane. That's all it is. So that's been established. Now, how do we get these enlarge and shrink things working? Well, let's go up here. Let's go up here, right here. Size controls does the job. You have an instance of a class called size controls. Size controls extends a horizontal box. So basically, size controls is a horizontal box. A horizontal box, an H box, lays out its component nicely horizontally. The constructor that gets called needs to have access to the updatable pane and the statistics pane so that you can update those items. If you don't have access to those panes, you can't update anything. So here we go. Set the spacing between the controls, the buttons, to be 10 pixels. I just picked that. Just looked good. Just make sure those buttons are in the center. Create your buttons, plus and minus. Add them to the horizontal box, which this is. Just add those children. Now here's the magic here. This is a button. Every button has a set on action that executes when you click it. Basically, the idea is the set on action takes as a parameter some code. What I've got highlighted there is what's called a lambda. Lambdas are nothing more than functions that get passed to other as parameters to other methods. So this code executes, and basically this code, this X is a parameter that gets passed, which is called an action event parameter. We're not doing anything with that, so just disregard that. The whole idea is execute this code when you click a button. Enlarge. Okay, we're going to call polynomial panes enlarge. Now, what does that do? It increments the size, and then internally calls paint to repaint the thing. Once you do that, what we're going to do is on the stats pane, there's an update stats method inside the stats pane, which will look at the current state of the update poly pane. Remember, there's a couple of getters in there that it gets the number of sides, the radius, and that kind of stuff. And then we could take those values to load the boxes that are on the. See these values right here? Okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sides. So that will call a get sides method that I can use to fill in that field, that text field to be 7, and fill the rest of this data out. Okay. And then what we're going to do is why it's happening. Shrink. Okay. Decrease the number of sides. Update the stats. And then add. So this code doesn't actually execute until you actually press the buttons. But this piece of code will execute because it's part of the constructor. And the idea here is, remember, the initial value of the poly pane had 4 sides. You need to make sure that the stats reflects the 4 sides that are that were initialized in that pane. So we make sure that those stats will read the 4 sides and update the statistics. And that's basically it. That's all you really need to do. If you want to delve into it a little bit closer, okay, statistics pane is not something that you need for this homework assignment. But you'll take a look and you say, statistics pane extends horizontal box. What does that mean? Wait a second. It extends horizontal box, huh? What does that mean? Here's what it means. A very subtle problem here. You see these things that you almost might think that this is a vertical box because these things are vertically laid out. But what I wanted to do is have a little separator here. See, there's a little separation here. This little line here that you just take for granted. That's a separator. So that's a node in itself, And then right after that node, what I do is I lay out a vertical box of these components. So horizontally, we have two components, a separator and this vertical box. That's why it's an H box. Okay, and so here's our text boxes, and here's our constructor that gets called. I say the default width of this pane is 150 pixels, so you gotta believe there's 150 pixels from here to here. Looks like it should be. And let's take a look at it again. The way this works, you might not see this too closely, but this is a mini vertical box. This is a mini vertical box. Another mini vertical box. There's 4 mini vertical boxes, and then there's a little bit of space in between those vertical boxes. So then what we do is we take those mini vertical boxes and put them as 4 units inside a bigger vertical box. You got to get used to the way that works. Every GUI does this. Okay, you can nest your layout panes to get different effects. But here's the thing. Close this out. Okay, here we go. This establishes, here's your text field. You got to make it set editable to be false. And what we're doing is we're adding. Let me see if I can delete this. Yeah, it might look a little bit better if we put it on one line. Okay. Get the children of the mini vertical box. There's a separation of 1 pixel between, so the label and the text field are closer together. Add number of sides and the text number of sides right there. Same thing here. Same thing down here. Okay, let's put it on the same level there. Then we'll put this over here too. This just looks better. I think it got formatted weird. And let's go over here. These are little mini vertical boxes. Now, the outer box, notice 10 pixels in between items. VBox.getChildren, add all. These are your 4 groups, and that's the big outer box that you see here, right over here. And then to get that little separator going here, remember we add the separator, vertical separator with the vertical box, and you laid it out. Okay, update stats. Now, how do we update the stats? I gotta have a reference to the Polygon pane. There you go. You'll notice that code is in there. And we have a couple of getters from that updatable pane. And from that, you can load the statistics from these calculations. Now, let's see, like the very top one, the number of sides. Okay, no problem. Convert the number of sides to text. Set the text to that. That's no problem. Okay, you can certainly understand pi r squared. A standard circle is pi r squared. We got the radius, 200 by 200 times pi. That should be a fixed value that gets set in here. The difference between the poly area and the circle area is the delta. And this is nothing more than the formula that you could dig up on the net for, given if it's a regular polygon, given the number of sides, and the radius, just what the area is in square pixels, and that's it. That's it. So the whole idea behind doing this next homework assignment is you really don't even need this statistics pane. So you can get rid of this kind of code entirely. You don't need that. Okay, you're gonna have a traffic light, which is nothing more than a rectangle and 3 circles. Okay, you're gonna have 3 buttons: red, green, blue. If you click red, then obviously the red light comes on. If you turn yellow, the yellow light turns on. The other one's got turned off. And it's a straightforward problem, but use this as a way to guide your logic. I think this is a nice program to show you what you need to do to develop a nice GUI and to process events properly. Okay, I think you have enough here. Good luck.